With me now in the studio is Ramesh Rajasingham. He is the UN's Deputy Regional Humanitarian Coordinator for Syria. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to apologize in advance if I sound fatalistic, but just over a week ago you said an immediate ceasefire in Syria was very possible. Knowing the dynamics of this conflict and the constant failure, really, of the United Nations Security Council to pass any sort of resolution, to even just calm this conflict, I have to ask you, what was that optimism actually based on, and have you lost it?
No, I don't think it's not an issue of optimism or pessimism. It's an issue of what we need to do to bring some degree of normalcy to the people on the ground, especially those who are suffering this horrific bombing. The reason I said that was because we've had it before. It's not unprecedented. And we've had it in the Syria crisis as well. So in many instances, I think we've managed to get a ceasefire, and I think all the same blocks are still in place. So it's a little bit of political will from certain actors, and we keep pushing for this at all levels, at the political level, at the humanitarian level, and we're hoping today that there will be some positive movement in New York as well.
You're hoping today, but Russia has already indicated it's not behind this ceasefire, and it's not going to be any different from what we saw leading up to the disaster that became Aleppo.
Indeed. Well, I mean, we work on the humanitarian side, so we look to the suffering of the people on the ground. That's our primary purpose. How do we support them? How do we make sure that they have access to hospitals, to food, to water? And we're hoping those messages will get through, because it's an issue of humanity, and I think humanity affects all of us. So that's one of our key principles and guidelines for our activities as well.
I'm just curious as to, you're saying this, as part of the humanitarian angle in this conflict. UNICEF actually said they no longer have words to describe the kind of suffering we're seeing, and still it's made no difference. Why do you think Russia in particular, which can block all of this via its veto power at the UN Security Council, will act differently this time?
Well, I don't think it's an issue of acting differently this time. As I mentioned, we've had ceasefires before. We've had ceasefires in Idlib before, we've had ceasefires in East Ghouta before, and it did work. So we're not asking for something that we've never had before. We're just pleading that this time the suffering is even more acute than it's ever been before. And we're basically appealing to humanity in this case.
What happens if this ceasefire doesn't get passed?
What you've seen today, 400 people, up to 400 people killed in the last 5 or 6 days in East Ghouta, civilians. Families, children, women, men, that will just increase. East Ghouta is about 400,000 people living in 100 square kilometers. That's 4,000 people per square kilometer. You can't drop an airstrike or a barrel bomb and not expect to have massive casualties. So if this continues, we're going to see a massacre in East Ghouta.
If it continues, and it may very well continue, who can ever be held accountable?
I think we have to, obviously, from the humanitarian perspective, we keep a track of all the casualties. We keep a track of all the humanitarian sites that have been hit. And then at some point, there has to be a process that takes that forward into a longer-term legal process.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Ramesh Rajasingham, I'd like to thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.